They say Mekong whispers secrets, Arun muttered, his voice barely audible above the cacophony of Bangkok's bustling street market. Secrets of fortunes built on lies, of lives shattered by greed. A sudden sharp pain shot through his leg. Arun winced, clutching at his thigh where a street urchin's rusty blade had found its mark. "Give me all your money, Farang," the boy hissed, his eyes gleaming with a desperate hunger that mirrored Arun's own. "Or the Mekong will swallow you whole." Arun fumbled for the few baht he had left, his heart pounding against his ribs. He tossed the coins at the boy, who snatched them up and disappeared into the throng of shoppers. Arun limped away, the encounter a stark reminder of his own precarious position. He was a man teetering on the edge, desperate for a break, for a chance to prove himself, to escape the suffocating weight of his family's past failures. Days later, Arun sat nervously in the sterile waiting room of a gleaming corporate tower, his best but ill-fitting suit clinging to his sweat-drenched body. He clutched a worn wooden elephant figurine, a family heirloom, in his trembling hand. This interview, with the enigmatic Mr. Singh, was his last hope. "Arun Mehta," a voice boomed from the intercom. Arun's heart leapt into his throat. He took a deep breath, straightened his tie, and walked towards the imposing glass doors. Mr. Singh's office was a study in opulence, the panoramic view of Bangkok's skyline, a stark contrast to the cramped apartment Arun shared with his family. Mr. Singh, impeccably dressed and exuding an unsettling charm, gestured for Arun to sit. "Tell me, Mr. Mehta, why do you believe you're the right candidate for this position?" Mr. Singh's voice was smooth, his eyes piercing. Arun's carefully rehearsed answer caught in his throat. He stammered, his hands fidgeting with the elephant figurine. I'm a hard worker, sir. I'm dedicated, and I'm eager to learn." Mr. Singh raised an eyebrow. "Those are admirable qualities, Mr. Mehta, but are they enough to excel in a highly competitive environment like ours?" Arun's desperation surged. He knew he was underqualified, but the thought of returning home empty-handed, another failure etched on his face, was unbearable. I'm highly adaptable, sir. I'm a quick learner, and I'm not afraid of a challenge." Mr. Singh leaned forward, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Adaptability is indeed a valuable asset, Mr. Mehta, especially in an organization like ours, where discretion and flexibility are paramount." Arun's gut churned with unease, but he pressed on. He embellished his qualifications, exaggerating his experience, weaving a tapestry of lies to impress the man before him. Mr. Singh's smile widened. "You're a very ambitious young man, Mr. Mehta. I admire that." He paused, his gaze lingering on Arun's nervous face. "I believe you have the potential to be a valuable asset to our organization. We'll be in touch." Arun left the interview in a daze, a mix of elation and apprehension swirling within him. He had lied, but the prospect of a well-paying job, a chance to finally provide for his family and escape the shadow of his past, was too tempting to resist. The job offer arrived a few days later, a formal email confirming his appointment. As Arun scrolled through the message, a strange anomaly caught his eye. A seemingly random string of characters at the end of the email, out of place in the otherwise professional correspondence. Arun's heart pounded. He copied the characters into a search engine, his fingers trembling. The results were a jumbled mess of conspiracy theories and cryptic forum posts, all hinting at a darker side to the organization he was about to join. Arun's mind raced. Was this a test? A warning? Or just a random glitch? He decided to confide in his younger sister, Meera Dotton. "Meera, I need to show you something," Arun said, his voice hushed. He showed her the email and the search results. Meera's brow furrowed. "Arun, this is unsettling. Are you sure you want to take this job?" Arun hesitated. He knew Meera was right, but the lure of financial security was a powerful force. "I need this job, Meera. For our family, for myself." Meera's eyes filled with concern. "But what if it's dangerous? What if this organization is involved in something illegal?" Arun dismissed her worries with a wave of his hand. "It's just a job, Meera. I'll be careful." Meera shook her head. "I don't like this, Arun. Please be careful." Arun ignored her pleas, his mind already made up. He had made his first choice, to ignore the warning signs and embrace the opportunity, no matter the cost. He was stepping into the shadows, driven by his desperate need for success and the lie he had built around himself. Aaron's first day at the organization's headquarters was like stepping into another world. The sleek, minimalist design, the hushed whispers of his colleagues, the ever-present surveillance cameras, it was all unnervingly sterile. He met his team, a collection of ambitious young professionals who seemed as driven and anxious as he was. Among them was a woman named Priya, a senior executive with a cynical edge and a sharp wit. She seemed to see through Aaron's facade, her eyes glinting with a knowing amusement. "So, you're the new recruit," Priya said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Welcome to the jungle, Meta. Don't get eaten alive." Aaron forced a smile. "I'll try my best." Later that day, Aaron caught a glimpse of Mr. Singh in a heated conversation with a shadowy figure in a dimly lit corridor. The figure's face was obscured, but Aaron could sense a palpable aura of menace emanating from him. Aaron's unease intensified. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a terrible mistake. He tried to focus on his work, but the cryptic message, the shadowy figure, Prayer's cynical remarks, it all gnawed at his conscience. As the weeks turned into months, Aaron's responsibilities within the organization grew. He was tasked with increasingly morally ambiguous assignments, from manipulating data to covering up environmental violations. He witnessed firsthand the organization's ruthlessness, their disregard for human life and the environment. Aaron's guilt and paranoia intensified. He became withdrawn, his relationship with Mira strained by his secrecy and his growing anxiety. Mira's worried questions only fueled his frustration. "Aaron, you're not yourself lately," Mira said one evening, her voice filled with concern. "What's going on?" Aaron snapped. "It's nothing, Mira. Just work stress. You wouldn't understand." Mira's eyes filled with hurt. "I'm your sister, Aaron. I want to understand." Aaron sighed, the weight of his lies pressing down on him. "I can't tell you, Mira. It's complicated." Mira shook her head. "I don't like this, Aaron. You're keeping secrets from me, from our family." Aaron turned away, unable to face her disappointment. He knew he was pushing her away, but he couldn't risk exposing her to the danger he was in. Meanwhile, Priya continued to observe Aaron, her cynicism tinged with a strange protectiveness. She dropped cryptic hints about the organization's true nature, her words laced with double meanings that Aaron struggled to decipher. "Don't believe everything you see, Meta," she said one day, her eyes glinting with a knowing look. "This place is built on lies, and the higher you climb, the deeper you sink." Aaron's mind raced. Was Priya trying to warn him, or was she just playing mind games? He couldn't be sure. One evening, Aaron received a summons to Mr. Singh's office. He entered the opulent room, his heart pounding with apprehension. "Aaron, my boy, you've been exceeding expectations," Mr. Singh said, his voice dripping with honeyed praise. "I'm pleased to announce that you've been promoted. A significant raise, a new office, a bigger role in our operations." Aaron's head spun. He had achieved success, the very thing he had craved for so long. But the cost of that success was a gnawing emptiness in his soul. As he left Mr. Singh's office, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was the man he had seen talking to Mr. Singh months ago, the man who exuded an aura of menace. "Mr. Mehta," the man said, his voice a low growl. "We need to have a little chat." Aaron's blood ran cold. He knew in that moment that his choices had led him to a dangerous precipice. The whispers of the Mekong had turned into a roar, threatening to engulf him whole. Aaron's newfound success was short-lived. The promotion, the raise, the bigger office, it all felt hollow in the face of the growing darkness that surrounded him. He had become deeply complicit in the organization's illegal activities, his conscience a battlefield of guilt and regret. Mira, meanwhile, had not given up on her brother. She had continued her investigation, digging deeper into the organization's past, her determination fueled by her love for Aaron and her unwavering sense of justice. One evening, Mira burst into Aaron's apartment, her face pale with shock. "Aaron, I found something terrible." Aaron's heart sank. He knew, from the look in Mira's eyes, that whatever she had discovered would shatter his world. It's about the organization," Mira said, her voice trembling. "They're connected to what happened to Father." Aaron's breath caught in his throat. His father's death, years ago, had been ruled an accident, a tragic boating incident on the Mekong River. But Mira's words suggested a darker truth. a truth that implicated the very organization he now worked for. "What are you talking about, Mira?" Aaron asked, his voice barely a whisper. Mira's eyes filled with tears. "I found documents, Aaron. Evidence. The organization. They were responsible for Father's death. They sabotaged his boat. They wanted him silenced." Aaron's mind reeled. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The cryptic message, the shadowy figure, Priya's warnings, it all pointed to a conspiracy far deeper and more sinister than he could have imagined. Priya, who had been observing the conversation from the doorway, stepped into the room. "She's right, Aaron," she said, her voice somber. "I've known about this for a long time. I wanted to warn you, but I couldn't risk exposing myself." Aaron stared at Priya, his mind racing. "Why are you telling me this now?" Priya's eyes hardened. "Because I can't stand by and watch them destroy you too. You need to get out of this, Aaron, before it's too late." Aaron's heart pounded against his ribs. He looked at Mira, her face streaked with tears, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. He knew, in that moment, that he had a choice to make. He could continue down the path he had chosen, clinging to the illusion of success, burying his conscience beneath a mountain of lies. Or he could face the truth, expose the organization, and avenge his father's death, even if it meant sacrificing everything he had worked for. Aaron took a deep breath, the weight of his past choices pressing down on him. He looked at Mira, her unwavering faith in him, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. He looked at Priya, her cynicism tempered by a newfound courage. "I'm done," Aaron said, his voice firm. "I'm going to expose them, all of them." Mira's face lit up with a glimmer of hope. "I'm with you, Aaron." Priya nodded. "Count me in." In that moment, a fragile alliance was formed, forged in a crucible of shared grief and a desperate thirst for justice. Aaron's journey had reached a turning point, the midpoint of his story. He had finally confronted the devastating consequences of his lie, and he was ready to embrace the truth, no matter the cost. Aaron's resolve hardened. He had spent months chasing a lie, a mirage of success built on shaky foundations. Now, faced with the devastating truth about his father's death and the organization's depravity, he knew he could no longer ignore the whispers of his conscience. "What do we do?" Aaron asked, his voice raw with emotion. Priya's cynical facade crumbled, replaced by a steely determination. "We fight back," she said. "We expose them for what they are." Mira, her eyes shining with a newfound fire, nodded in agreement. "We owe it to Father, and to all the others they've hurt." The trio spent the next few days huddled in Aaron's apartment, poring over the evidence Mira had gathered, piecing together the organization's web of deceit. Priya's insider knowledge proved invaluable, shedding light on the organization's hierarchy, their operations, and their vulnerabilities. "They're planning a major shipment next week," Priya revealed, her voice hushed. "Illegal weapons, destined for a conflict zone." Aaron's eyes narrowed. "That's our chance. We can expose them to the authorities, bring the whole operation down." Mira's face paled. "But Aaron, it's too dangerous. They'll kill you if they find out." Aaron's jaw clenched. "I don't care anymore, Mira. I have to do this. For Father, for all of us." Priya's lips curled into a wry smile. "Don't worry, Mater. I'm not letting you go down without a fight." Their plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. They would infiltrate the organization's heavily guarded warehouse on the night of the shipment, gather irrefutable evidence, and then alert the authorities. The night of the operation arrived, cloaked in a humid darkness that mirrored the tension in Aaron's heart. He, Mira and Priya, disguised as maintenance workers, slipped through a side entrance of the warehouse, their movements guided by Priya's intimate knowledge of the facility's layout. The warehouse was a hive of activity, workers loading crates onto trucks, their faces grim and determined. Aaron's heart pounded as they crept through the shadows, their every step a gamble against discovery. Suddenly, a gruff voice boomed from behind them. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Aaron froze, his blood turning to ice. He turned slowly to face the voice, his heart sinking as he recognized the hulking figure of the enforcer, the organization's ruthless muscle. We're just doing a routine check, sir." Aaron stammered, trying to maintain his composure. The enforcer's eyes narrowed, his gaze piercing through Aaron's flimsy disguise. "Routine check, huh? At this hour? I don't think so." He stepped closer, his hand reaching for the switchblade tucked into his belt. You're not who you say you are you? Aaron's mind raced. He knew they were caught, their plan exposed. He glanced at Priya, who gave him a subtle nod, her eyes glinting with a desperate resolve. In a flash, Aaron lunged forward, grabbing a nearby crowbar and swinging it with all his might. The crowbar connected with the enforcer's jaw, sending him sprawling to the ground. Run, Aaron shouted, grabbing Mira's hand and pulling her towards the back of the warehouse. Priya followed close behind, her movements swift and agile. They raced through a maze of corridors, the enforcer's enraged shouts echoing behind them. They reached a loading dock, a truck rumbling to life, its headlights illuminating the rain-slicked pavement. Aaron knew this was their only chance. Get in, he yelled, pushing Mira towards the truck. Priya hesitated, her eyes darting back towards the warehouse. What about you? Aaron's jaw clenched. I'll be right behind you. Priya nodded and climbed into the truck, Mira following close behind. Aaron turned to face the warehouse, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. The enforcer emerged from the shadows, his face contorted with rage, the crowbar wound, oozing blood. You're not getting away, Meta, he roared, charging towards a run. Aaron knew he couldn't outrun him. He had to fight. He grabbed a discarded piece of wood, bracing himself for the inevitable impact. The enforcer lunged, his switchblade flashing in the dim light. Aaron dodged the blade, swinging the wood with all his might. It connected with the enforcer's temple, sending him crashing to the ground, unconscious. Aaron didn't hesitate. He sprinted towards the truck, leaping onto the back just as it pulled away from the loading dock. As the truck sped through the rain-soaked streets of Bangkok, Aaron's mind raced. They had escaped, but the fight was far from over. He had to expose the organization, bring them to justice, avenge his father's death. He pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling as he dialed the number of the weary police officer, the one person he could trust. It's Aaron, he said, his voice breathless. I have evidence. The organization, they're involved in illegal arms trafficking, and they killed my father. The police officer's voice was skeptical at first, but as Aaron detailed the evidence, the location of the shipment, the names of those involved, a grudging respect crept into his tone. I'll meet you at the docks, the officer said. But Meta, if this is a waste of my time. It's not, Aaron interrupted, his voice filled with conviction. I promise you it's not. The truck screeched to a halt at the docks, the police officer waiting with a team of armed officers. Aaron, Mira, and Priya emerged from the truck, their faces itched with exhaustion and determination. As the police raided the warehouse, seizing the illegal weapons and arresting the organization's leaders, Aaron watched from a distance, his heart filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. The organization was exposed, their reign of terror brought to an end, but the victory was bittersweet. Priya had been injured during the escape, her fate uncertain. And Aaron knew that the fight for justice was far from over. In the aftermath of the raid, Aaron and Mira returned to their family's small apartment, the weight of their ordeal heavy on their shoulders. They sat in silence, the only sound the gentle hum of the city outside. We did it, Aaron, Mira said softly, her eyes filled with tears. We avenged father. Aaron nodded, his own eyes welling up. We did, Mira, but at a cost. He thought of Priya, her cynical facade masking a deep sense of justice. He thought of the enforcer, his ruthlessness born of a desperate need for belonging. He thought of Mr. Singh, his charm hiding a manipulative heart. Aaron realized that the world was not simply divided into good and evil. It was a complex tapestry of human motivations, of choices made under pressure, of the struggle between ambition and integrity. He had learned a valuable lesson, a lesson forged in the fires of betrayal and loss. True success was not measured by wealth or power, but by the strength of one's character, the depth of one's compassion, the unwavering commitment to one's values. As the sun rose over Bangkok, casting a golden glow on the Mekong River, Aaron stood with Mira on the balcony, watching the city awaken. The whispers of the river, once a source of fear and uncertainty, now carried a message of hope and renewal. Aaron had faced his demons, confronted his lie, and embraced the truth. He had found redemption not in the pursuit of superficial success, but in the unwavering love of his family and the courage to fight for what he believed in. The whispers of the Mekong had guided him through the darkness, leading him towards a future where integrity and justice prevailed. And as he looked out at the bustling city, Aaron knew that his journey had just begun.